Hey folks, today we're going to look at a pretty common problem with DBT incrementals and snapshots. You kind of look at your job or you try to run an incremental or a snapshot and you see an error that says duplicate row detected during DML. So we're going to try and understand kind of what the problem is really by looking at some quick examples. Keep in mind, DBT's job is to send SQL commands to your data warehouse, right? DBT doesn't know anything about your data at all. If your data is bad, then you're going to run into an error, and that is kind of not really DBT's fault, but rather data problem. Okay, so here is what I'm going to do. I'm going to first kind of drop my incremental table if it exists, just so that we are creating it from scratch. I am going to create a raw customers table. And what we see in the raw customers table here is that we have one row, ID1, customer Alice, and some sort of updated time. Now I have in my DBT project, I've declared that customers table as a source. And in my incremental model here, we are going to select the ID customer updated columns. And then you can see here, I have a unique key, says ID, and this is incremental. Okay, so this will be the first initial build of my incremental model. So let's see what the SQL commands are. Okay, so my ink kind of built completely or without errors. And as we know, first go around of our incremental, we just create it from scratch. So I can go ahead and see what the data is in this. Okay, so that worked. Now let's assume our raw customers table has updated, right? So I'm going to kind of truncate this and I'm just going to insert one row again. So if we look at this raw customers table, here our raw data is still quite clean, right? Well, it is clean. We only have one ID here, ID of one happening only once. Now let's build this again and let's see what are the SQL commands that DBT has sent to Snowflake. Incremental. And if you look at this here, what's happened is on an incremental run of the model, first DBT is going to create a temporary view, and next is going to do a merge statement, right? It's create temporary view, merge into our target table, selecting from that temporary view. Okay, here again, no errors, so you can see this is the merge statement here. If I select from the ink, then it would have been updated to Bob, and then I can't quite recall if it was at least before, but let's try to do this. I'll truncate customers and then I will insert, make sure this is Eve, and make sure my ink is Bob. Okay, so now that when I rerun my incremental, this should have changed to Eve. Let's see if that works. Again, we didn't change our code at all. Create a replace temporary view, merge into the incremental, and hopefully this says Eve now. Okay, so it works as expected, right? So now let's look at a scenario where let's say you have some bad data, right? So for example, I'm going to insert two rows into raw customers. So if I look at raw customers now, we see that we have got a duplicate here. There's a duplicate ID, right? This ID says one Carol and this one says one Dave. Now, again, I'm not going to modify any DBT code at all, right? DBT model code, unchanging. Let's do a run and let's see what's the outcome. Aha, now we get our error and we get our kind of infamous duplicate row detected during DML action, right? So if you have a duplicate and you're trying to merge into the target table, then this is an error that can show up. And this is pretty much exactly, you can see here, for example, did DBT do its job? The answer is yes, because here, this is the merge statement, right? Create temporary view, merge into. Here, create temporary view, merge into. And if you compare them, they're exactly the same queries. So DBT has done its job. It's just the fact that we have some bad data here. For example, we have a duplicate here. And this is causing the snowflake to throw this particular error. Okay, so what can we do here? Essentially, we can do things, we can ensure that perhaps this is unique, right? In our raw customers, we want to make sure that there are no duplicates. Sometimes if it is kind of out of your control, what we can do is we can kind of do something like this. So if we run a kind of row number over this, then we can say where number one. So you do some sort of row numbering of by where row num. So you do some sort of partitioning by the ID, and then you order by something, either the name to get alphabetical or timestamp or something like that. The idea is that you kind of want it to have to be unique, right? So I think probably I want the query like this. Okay, so let me do this. Raw where row num is one. So here I'm gonna just want to get the ID, customer, and update it. So I'm gonna try this out, see if this works, and then I'll put this into my model. Okay, so that works. But obviously, this one picks Carol, right? Sometimes it might pick Dave, right? So because if you look at the raw data, we are kind of ordering it by this updated at, and they're exactly equal. So Snowflake will just pick something at random. Essentially, this is not like the best idea because sometimes it's Carol, sometimes it's Dave. And it kind of you roll the dice, right? So the best case is you don't have duplicates. Make sure that you have no duplicates. But sometimes if you cannot have duplicates, then you might want to try to do something like this. So here I'm gonna put it in here, and then here can be source uh, raw customers. Okay, so I have the same exact stuff, but now I'm making sure that the ID is guaranteed to be unique. And now if I build, so let's have a look at the raw table again, just make sure that there are duplicates. And there are duplicates. Okay, now I've changed my code slightly. Let's see what happens now when I rebuild it. And we see now that there are no problems. Everything succeeded. Merge, same old stuff, right? Create the view with all of this stuff, which is in the model code, and then do the merge as expected. Now, when I select from my incremental model, then it has changed to Carol. Okay. But again, because this is non-deterministic, right? Sometimes it can be Carol, sometimes it can be Dave. So definitely not a good idea to have duplicates here. Okay, now we can also see this happening with snapshots. So I'll show you how that looks like. First, let's go and replace our raw table. Make sure we only have a single row so that it's clean. I'm going to drop my snappy. Okay, so first let's go to our not incremental, go to our snapshot. And the snapshot code is essentially the same as incremental. What you'll see later in the code is that it's going to do a merge. But let's build this for the first time. Let's drop snappy if it exists. Okay, snapshot is dropped. So if we do this, let's see what happens. Snapshot is created. Again, when we are creating from scratch, DBT is going to create the table first. And of course, snapshots has a whole bunch of other things for all of this metadata fields and so on. Now, if we go back here, we select from snapshot. Then here we see that it says Alice, which is all well and good. Now let's insert a new row, but making sure that data is clean. Let's say Bob. So raw data has been updated to Bob. Raw data, is it clean? The answer is yes, because there's only one row. Now let's re-snapshot. Now, for a subsequent go around at the snapshot, you can see it's kind of almost like incremental. We create a temporary table, all of this stuff here, and then eventually we merge again, right? So if you look at a snapshot, then we have an additional row, presumably. There you go. It was Bob before, and then we changed it to Alice, which all well and good. Now, let's get into a situation where our raw data is bad. Double up here. Dave, let's double check our raw data, make sure that it's doubled. Yep, so raw data is not in a good state, duplicate IDs. Let's redo a snapshot. Again, I'm not changing any model code, right? Snapshot is running, and let's see, do we get our friend? We do get our friend of duplicate row detected during DML action, right? So again, if you have raw data, or as long as you're selecting from another table or in your model itself, there is a duplicate of the unique key, then you are going to run into a problem like this. We can have a look at a quick example here as well without DBT itself, right? So I'm just going to run kind of pure SQL commands here on Snowflake. So if I create a table, target table here, ID1, customer as Alice, and then I create a second table which represents the incoming data, ID1 Bob, ID1 Carol, and then now I do a merge into the target table using stuff from the incoming, and then we are joining on the ID column, and then when it is matched, we want to update the target table. So there is no DBT involved here, right? We see that we get the exact problem. DBT kind of just hides the row. You can see here the error says row values redacted because you can see the row values actually contain some PII sometimes. So DBT kind of kindly hides it for you. But you can see here the problem is not a DBT thing. You essentially have data that is duplicated. And if I were to kind of draw it, this is kind of how I would visualize it. When your incoming data is clean, right? You only have one row, then it's possible to just insert it into the target. Not insert, well, update, and then your outcome is you have another one right here. However, if your incoming data has like multiple ID of 1, then Snowflake is trying to kind of update this ID of 1 here as well. But which one to use, right? We don't know, right? And essentially, because we don't know, then Snowflake is going to throw you the error. There's a lot more kind of, I guess, detail explained in this Snowflake documentation. But essentially, the problem where you see this error, database error, duplicate detected, you do have a duplicate, and that's the reason why you see this problem, right? There is no other scenario that would cause this duplicate problem, except when you do have a duplicate. Thank you.